he slapped his broke ex in public, not knowing she married a Korean mafia boss. The crack of skin against skin echoed through the marble corridors of the Lotte department store like a gunshot. For 3 seconds, the entire luxury floor went silent. Shoppers froze mid-stride. Sales clerks stopped wrapping purchases. Even the elevator doors seemed to pause before closing. Jessica Morgan's head snapped to the side, her cheek already burning red where her ex-husband's hand had connected. She stumbled backward into a display of $1,000 silk scarves, her simple cotton dress catching on a crystal fixture. Her almond-shaped eyes went wide, not with tears, but with the kind of shock that comes when your worst nightmare walks back into your life and immediately proves he hasn't changed at all. Standing over her, chest heaving with rage, was Marcus Sullivan, the man who'd cleaned out their joint bank account 5 years ago in Atlanta, the man who'd sold her grandmother's jewelry to cover his gambling debts, the man who'd left her with nothing but a trash bag of clothes and a one-way ticket to Seoul because he'd convinced himself she'd disappear quietly into a foreign city where nobody knew her name. He had no idea she'd done the exact opposite. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, we tell real stories about justice, revenge, and people who thought they'd gotten away with everything. Make sure you're subscribed, because what happens next is gonna blow your mind. Marcus adjusted his designer jacket, the one with the label still clearly visible, and sneered down at her. "I told you to stay out of my sight, Jessica. Look at you, still dressing like you shop at thrift stores. You don't belong in a place like this." What Marcus didn't know was that the woman on the floor wasn't the same broke, desperate person he'd abandoned. He didn't see the custom-fitted wedding band hidden beneath the sleeve of her cardigan. He didn't know about the penthouse overlooking the Han River that she'd woken up in that morning. He certainly didn't notice the black titanium credit card in her plain shoulder bag that could buy the entire store they were standing in. But most critically, Marcus had no idea about the man's name now protected hers. He didn't see the 4 men in dark suits quietly moving to block the store exits. He didn't notice the sudden tension in the air as other shoppers began backing away, their faces draining of color as they recognized something he was too arrogant to see. And he definitely didn't see the tall figure stepping out of the private elevator across the hall. The man with jet black hair, a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, and eyes that held the kind of cold authority that made grown men confess to crimes they didn't commit. Si Jin-woo, Seoul's most feared underground boss, Jessica's husband. As Jessica's phone buzzed in her pocket with an emergency alert and Jin-woo's unreadable gaze locked onto the back of Marcus's head, the temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Marcus Sullivan had just made the worst mistake of his life. He hadn't just slapped his ex-wife. He'd just declared war on a king's queen. And in exactly 90 seconds, his entire world was going to collapse. But let's back up 6 hours. That morning, Jessica had stood in front of her bathroom mirror in their penthouse, debating whether to wear her wedding ring. For 2 years, she'd kept her marriage secret. Jin-woo had insisted it was for her safety. In his world, being known as his wife meant becoming a target, so she'd agreed to stay hidden, to shop alone, to move through Seoul like a ghost. She'd chosen her usual outfit that day, modest, neutral tones, nothing that screamed money. She'd slipped the platinum ring off her finger and tucked it into her pocket, telling herself it was just for a few hours, just a quick shopping trip. Jin-woo had watched her leave from his office window, tracking the GPS signal on his phone. He did this every time. His security team maintained a 30-yard perimeter around her at all times, close enough to intervene, far enough that she could feel normal, feel free. He'd saved her 3 years ago, found her sleeping in a subway station, her savings gone, her visa about to expire. Most men in his position would have ignored her. Jin-woo had seen something different, not a charity case, but a survivor, someone who'd been knocked down but refused to stay there. Their relationship had started slowly. He'd offered her a job first, legitimate work at one of his legal businesses, then friendship, then something deeper. By the time he'd proposed, Jessica had learned that the monster the media portrayed was actually a man who'd built an empire to protect people the system forgot. But Marcus Sullivan didn't know any of this. Marcus was in Seoul for one reason: to close the biggest deal of his miserable career. He'd spent 6 months courting 2 Korean investment firms, promising them access to American markets, dropping names, leasing cars he couldn't afford to look successful. This deal was supposed to save him. His company was drowning in debt. His fiancée's father was demanding results. Everything depended on the next 2 hours. He'd walked into that department store with his potential investors, trying to show them the lifestyle their partnership would afford. And that's when he'd seen her, Jessica, his failure, his reminder that he'd once been married to someone beneath him. The rage had been instant. How dare she exist in his space, in his moment of triumph? 5 years in Seoul and you're still dressing like a maid? Marcus had snarled, loud enough for his business partners to hear. Did you sneak in through the service entrance? Jessica had tried to walk away. She'd actually turned her back on him, heading for the exit. That's when he'd grabbed her arm, spun her around, and let his hand fly. The slap echoed through 3 floors. Within seconds, Jin Woo's head of security had activated Code Black, the highest alert, reserved for only one scenario: someone had touched the boss's wife. Jin Woo had been in a boardroom negotiating a billion-dollar merger when his phone lit up red. He'd stood up without a word, walked out while investors were mid-sentence, and made a single phone call. "Clear the roads. I'm going to Lotte, now." His motorcade had moved through Seoul like a military convoy, police cars mysteriously appearing to block intersections, giving him a straight shot to the shopping district. He'd made the 15-minute drive in 6. Back in the store, Marcus was still ranting. "You thought you could just disappear and start over? You're nothing, Jessica. You'll always be nothing. I should have done this years ago, saved myself the embarrassment of being married to Mr. Sullivan." The voice came from behind him, deep, calm, absolutely terrifying in its control. Marcus turned, his practiced smile already forming, ready to charm whoever was interrupting. The smile died on his lips. Jin Woo stood 10 feet away. He wasn't reaching for a weapon. He wasn't shouting. He didn't need to. Every person in that store recognized him, even if Marcus was too stupid to understand why everyone had gone silent. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" Marcus scoffed, his American accent suddenly sounding loud and foolish. "This is a private matter between me and my ex-wife. I suggest you—" "Your ex-wife," Jin Woo interrupted quietly, "is my wife." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Marcus's face went through several expressions at once: confusion, disbelief, then finally the first flicker of genuine fear as he saw the 2 Korean businessmen he'd been courting drop into deep, terrified bows behind him.
"Chairman Seo," they gasped in unison. "We didn't know you were here. Please forgive us." Marcus's world tilted. Chairman Seo. The name even he'd heard whispered in business circles. The untouchable. The man who didn't just own businesses, he owned the people who regulated them. Jin Woo hadn't moved. He pulled out his phone, scrolled through something, then looked up at Marcus with eyes that held no mercy. 5 years ago in Atlanta, you withdrew $24,000 from a joint account while Jessica was at work. You left her with $12.82. You sold her grandmother's wedding ring for $3,000 to pay off a poker debt. You took the title to her car and pawned it for $5,000. The total you stole from her was $41,600. Marcus's throat had gone dry. That was legally my money. We were married. It was joint. "In my world," Jin Woo continued, his voice dropping even lower, theft is repaid with interest. I calculate that debt at 1,000% over 5 years. You currently owe Jessica $416,000. He took one step closer, just one. It was enough to make Marcus stumble backward. But I don't want your money, Marcus. I want what it represents. Jin-Woo raised his phone. On the screen was a video. Crystal clear footage from the store's security system, showing Marcus slapping Jessica, showing him looming over her, every word of his verbal abuse captured in high definition. This video, Jin-Woo said calmly, is currently being sent to every business contact in your phone, every family member, every friend, your investors, your fiancé, her father, the board of directors at Lawson Global. It's going viral on Korean social media right now. You wanted to be famous, Marcus. Congratulations. Marcus grabbed for his phone, his hands shaking. The screen was exploding with notifications, emails, texts, calls. Then his banking app flashed red, account frozen. "What did you do?" Marcus whispered. "I made you exactly what you made her. Broke, alone, invisible." Behind Marcus, his two investors were already backing away, their phones pressed to their ears, frantically explaining to their firms that they had no association with this man, that this was all a terrible mistake. Jin-Woo finally looked past Marcus to Jessica, who was still sitting on the floor, one hand pressed to her burning cheek. His expression softened just slightly. He walked past Marcus as if he didn't exist, knelt down in front of Jessica, and gently took her hand. "Are you hurt?" he asked quietly, his voice meant only for her. Jessica shook her head, tears finally breaking free, not from pain, but from the release of 5 years of carrying fear that her past would destroy her future. Jin-Woo helped her to her feet, then did something that made everyone in the store gasp. He carefully took the platinum wedding ring from her pocket where she'd hidden it and slid it back onto her finger. Then he raised her hand to his lips and kissed it. "You never have to hide again," he said softly. Behind them, Marcus was crumbling. His phone had gone dead, remotely wiped. His credit cards were declined. The hotel he was staying at had just called to inform him his reservation was canceled. In the span of 5 minutes, every digital trace of his success had been erased. Security guards appeared, not to arrest him, but to escort him out. As they guided him toward the exit, Jin-Woo called out one last time, "Marcus." The broken man turned. "You wanted to know if she belonged in a place like this," Jin-Woo said evenly. "She owns this building. I bought it for her last year. You've been shopping in my wife's store." The guards led Marcus away. He'd make it to the airport eventually, after begging the American embassy for emergency travel papers. He'd return to Atlanta to find his fiancée gone, his company bankrupt, and his face plastered across social media as the man who thought he could abuse his ex-wife in public. But Jessica never thought about him again. 6 months later, she opened the Morgan Foundation in the heart of Seoul, a place for expatriate women who'd been exploited, abandoned, or abused in foreign countries. She'd taken her pain and turned it into protection for others. At the opening ceremony, she stood at the podium wearing a beautiful dress, her wedding ring catching the light, her husband standing proudly beside her. She was no longer hiding, no longer afraid. She'd learned something that day in the department store. Sometimes the ghosts of your past show up to remind you how far you've come, and sometimes those ghosts get exactly what they deserve. Thanks so much for watching. If this story got you, hit that like button and subscribe for more true stories of justice served. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. See you in the next one.